Htp family. Welcome to the pro-black perspective on KWAZ Radio. Make sure that you check out the other programs on KWAZ Radio. That would be the Bitter Medicine Podcast, the Harsh Reality Podcast, and of course the Queen's Council. All of them are excellent, and I do encourage you to view them because they will help you, get a better grasp of this planet that we're on. Today we're going to continue this Reading the Book of Power series. Obviously this is episode 10, and we're going to jump to page 100. This is going to be Carlos A. Cook's The Nationalist Manifesto. For those of you who do not know Carlos A. Cook and want to know him, know that I have the ebook available for free on the Discord. So just click on the Discord, join the Discord, look under free books and discussions, no, free books and previews, and click on the drive link there. Then look around, and probably on the first page you'll see the Carlos A. Cook's reader. So you can definitely check that out. If you wanted to buy the book, unfortunately, at least at this moment, it's not for sale. Nobody is selling it. It's unavailable. It used to sell for $1,000 or $500, whatever. Point is that whoever wanted to buy it bought it, and it's gone. So make sure, if you want to read the content, get the ebook. If you I mean, technically, I don't know, you'd probably have to seek permission. You probably could republish it. That might be a good idea. But outside of that, yeah, this is either get that ebook, or you could get my book of power, and you could get some of the passages. But of course, if you want all the passages, just click on the Discord link, and you could probably see it in the description. So anyway, thank you for joining me this Saturday. This Sunday. This Sunday morning. Appreciate your presence, and we're just going to jump right into it. So this is Carlos A. Cook, and I'm going to read the introduction that I wrote. Right. So Baba speaks on genocide here so clearly, it's really a shame that his memory has not propagated it as strongly as others. I articulated it already. An African war without an African army is an African genocide. We're at war and have been at war for over 6,000 years, and until we understand this and act accordingly, we're in a genocide. That's something that, really, if you highlight books, you probably want to highlight this, right? So Baba repeats the white supremacist terminology here, but it's contextualized. The reason why I point this out is because I don't really like to use the word white supremacist. Although recently reading Yurugu, as you might have checked out in the last 2 weeks, or last 3 weeks, I might start reading Yurugu every week for Saturday. That's why I advise you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. But she uses the word supremacy as well, but hers is also contextualized. She's looking at different belief systems and looking at how they make a hierarchy where they put themselves on the top. So that's another way to contextualize it as well. The basic way that we all talk about, this is the white supremacy system. It's like, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do, in the sense of, if they are, like they're supposed to put themselves on the top. You know what I mean? Like, when I go to Africa, right, my expectation is that I would hope that I'm treated better than like the Chinese, or treated better than the English or whatever. Now, obviously, I would still be a foreigner, and that may impede some progress, but that's probably one of the intellectual hurdles that we have to go over. As I was discussing with this earlier this year, someone was saying that, realistically speaking, being like having that, like overlooking the fact that black people are in fact would be foreigners if they travel from another nation, overlooking that may be more pragmatic for us than otherwise. But again, like white supremacist terminology, I don't really use it, but I do recognize that Marcus Garvey used it, Carlos A. Cook used it, Marimba Ani used it, and those are good resources. But of course, when Neely Fuller uses it, it's not It's not the same. But that's the common way that we're using it these days. But anyway, let's keep going. The truth of the Ourstory he condemns goes back to the racial education available to Africans and black gullibility and naivete as he enunciates. So one thing that we have to focus on is racial education. I may sometimes say race first, but that's actually what we need. We need racial education. This is what other people get. Other people, and this is so important. I really want to emphasize and stress how important it is for us to recognize that you want to have the people in charge having a racial education, because the reality is that the people who are not in charge, right? They're for the most part they're kind of silly. For the most part, they're kind of silly. So, and in a sense, they can be inconsequential or they can be consequential. But it's really a matter of us, really targeting our audience. I want to point out too that there's this gentleman named Osman Toure, very well spoken young boy, or he looks young. But what you pick up on him is that he credits PLO Lumumba. He credits PLO Lumumba with with his his education in a sense. And so he's just this exceptional youth, partly because he went through some mentorship, and that's something that we don't really do enough of. I've done it a few times, obviously, but it's really something for us to uh, really indulge in, particularly on the continent, and particularly if we can also prepare our youth and our adults into the professional capacity. So, and of course, I'll just continue with that. It says this is the need for the Boko. Eurasians have loyal African foot soldiers for their cause because they educated Africans, and African gullibility made that so. This is really important. African gullibility is a thing. Until we organize, we'll continue fighting the taught instead of the teacher. This is, for those of you familiar with my work, and I know some people are, this is the whole Frankenstein story. The story of Frankenstein is that they don't kill the scientist, but they kill the monster he creates. And so we tend to fight the taught instead of the teacher. And of course, you do want to fight the taught, but you want to also fight the teacher, because if you do not fight the teacher, more will be taught. You understand? If you do not fight Frankenstein, there will be more monsters made. So, but the main thing, look at this, the main thing is that you have to organize. So you want to avoid this, right? You want to avoid not being organized. You want to avoid only fighting the taught instead of the teachers, because the teachers can just keep using your own people against you. And if they keep using your own people against you, you'll run out of people. If we go back into the rules of warfare, right? The general rules of warfare, which I haven't reprinted myself, but it's on. I haven't republished myself, but it's on the African Blood Siblings website. One of the rules of warfare is that if you can get a traitor, if you can convert one of your enemies into a traitor, right, or a spy or whatever, but a traitor, then it's more beneficial than if you were to kill one of your enemies. You understand? Because that traitor now is you pretty much, like, it's a psychological thing as well. The traitor is now suspected, and so on and so forth. I mean, you could read it on the site. Maybe I'll actually pull it up for the 0 people listening to me right now. Maybe I'll pull it up. So, what you would do, in fact, I could actually probably show you. What you would do is you would go to the African Blood Siblings website, right? Okay, there you go. You'd go to the African Blood Siblings website. You'd search for general rules of warfare. Now, I really think that you, and every African person, should be studying this, right? So you scroll down, and let's see if the word is traitor. Let's search the word traitor. No, that's just going to show you my Twitter. So make sure you follow my Twitter. It's at Onitaset. See? So it wouldn't be Twitter. It wouldn't be traitor. So I'll just have to scroll through and try to remember which of these it would be. So all of these are really important. So and this is something that's fundamental for Black people to understand, the rules of warfare, because what we, like I said, we've been engaged in war for 6,000 years, and we're not even organized the least bit to engage that, to counter engage it. So let's see, recognize well, blah. Okay, right here, this is it. So if someone, and of course you can also read this in the pro-black compendium. You know, I did put some of these in, not all of them. But if some on the side of the enemy desert to come to your service, if they be loyal, they will always make you a great acquisition, right? So if somebody deserts from the enemy and they're loyal to you, they make a great acquisition, right? For the forces of the adversary diminish more with the loss of those who flee than with those who are killed, right? See, you know, your enemy's forces are diminished more from a person who flees than from a person who's killed, and that's really something important. That's partly why white folk don't need to just kill you outright, right? And even though the names of the fugitive is suspect to the new friends and odious to the old, so he's saying, and this is Machiavelli, right? Well, not Machiavelli. It's not Machiavelli. It's Machiavelli is quoting older sources. Now they could be African sources. They could be European sources. Nobody knows. He just quoted them, right? Like unattributed. But he shares it because he's saying, if you get somebody who flees to your service, that's worth more for your domination, your conquest, right? Your victory, than if you were to kill them, because now their names are suspect. No, even though their names would be suspect to you, because you're like, oh, I don't even know if I could trust this. Like if you're a white person, you're like, I don't know if I could trust this black person. But it's now odious to the other person, and of course now the other person is also skeptical and weary of their own people, as it is. You know, they're like, oh well, you know, a lot of people are traitors. Like the capitalists, I guess. Somebody sold this this Black Lives Matters lady houses, you know, several houses, $7 million of houses, even though she's, you know, a quote unquote Marxist. But they did that, and now the whole movement is oh my gosh, what are we gonna do now? Imagine on the other side if they were to kill her, you know, this Black Lives Matter co-founder. If they were to kill her, now we'd be like, oh, you see that? We can't have any leaders. She was peaceful. She was all blah, and we might be agitated even more. Now, so you see how it's even smarter to say, you know what? Here, we're going to sell you these houses, you know, because you need to give your family houses. That's what she said. She said, you know, she has family that needs houses, and you know, these are $3 million worth, you know, whatever, right? After getting $90 million. But the point is that now her whole movement is suspect. Right? I mean, it's a smart acquisition on their part. So, you know, I mean, I would advise you, read this General Rules of Warfare. You see it's on the African Blood Siblings website. I put it up on 2013. I don't know if you can see the top of the screen. Let me see. No, you can't see the top of the screen. But go to the African Blood Siblings website. Go to the newsletter archive. Search for the General Rules of Warfare. And just read them. Read them in your group. Read them in your study. If nothing else, you know, you could read the pro-black compendium, and you can see this quote was in there as well. So, you know, just go over this stuff, because you want people to understand why they don't just outright kill you. You know, like what's the better part of not outright killing you? You know, because when they did, like, for instance, when they killed Martin Luther King, right? Like a lot of black people got out and tried to do something, tried to start some stuff, you know, burn down some property, did so on and so forth, you know. Instead of doing that, they said, look, you know, this sister, well, I shouldn't say sister, but you know, this lady, she if we can buy her out, you know, her Marxism is no longer credible. Her Black Lives Matter is no longer credible. Her collecting donations without any sort of accountability is no longer credible. You made her you made her non-credible in a sense, you know, and that's what you. And so now that makes us collectively, if Black Lives Matter were a successful campaign, it makes us collectively withdraw from it, you know. And so it's a interesting political move on the part of white people. But you know, like I said, you know, I don't even know how many people. Let me see how many people are in here. So 0 people. So I'm just talking to myself. So You know, if you're listening to this somehow. But yeah, make sure you leave some comments and all that kind of jazz. You know, they also help. Also, shout out to the people who hit up the Cash App. You know, that's appreciated as well. You know, but let's go. Eurasians, blah blah blah, gullibility. Some Ascari gain some consciousness and become Ancobia, right? So this is it. You want to avoid this. Some Ascari can gain consciousness and become Ancobia, though some are irredeemable or intolerable for our Ancobia. You got to understand that. You know, even if you can say, like for instance, you know, because some people will say, hey, you know, Malcolm X might have did X, Y, Z, so on and so forth. Okay, fine, right? But there's some people that you have to understand are irredeemable and intolerable. You know, this needs to at least be analyzed, if not attempted, as the truth is. Wait, this needs to at least be analyzed, if not attempted, as the truth is that any protracted struggle against Ascari, if it comes to that, will weaken the Ancobia cause and make war with Eurasians that much more difficult, as protracted struggles are costly for both sides. Whereas, okay, so this is the point. So, all right, look here. So I'm saying this right here. You know, you don't really want to fight a Ascari. You do, like obviously you want to fight a lot of them, obviously, but you don't really want to fight them because, you know, let's suppose that some can gain consciousness and become Ancobia, right? If we look at Ascari as a stage of consciousness and Ancobia is a stage of consciousness, right? You need to at least analyze or attempt this. As if you do not, and you're engaged in a protracted struggle against Ascari, right? If it comes to that, it will weaken our cause as Ancobia and make war with our real enemies, the Eurasians, that much more difficult. As protracted struggles are costly for both sides, whereas if Ascari can be made Ancobia, or at least less gullible or refocused, Ancobia numbers increase, and Ancobia focus heightens, and war with Eurasians is that much easier. You understand? There's a tactic to it. It's the same as what I just read with the Generals of Warfare, because you know a lot of this book is actually based off of warfare, right? How do I simplify? Oh yeah, so here's what I was saying. So there was this proverb on Twitter earlier today. I posted it and I said it was like pre-colonial Africa in a nutshell, but I wanna repeat it here. I put it in the Discord under deep discussions, I think, yeah. And it says, a sheep spends its entire life fearing the wolves, only to be eaten by the shepherds in the end, right? So it's the same with us. You know, you could say, look, we may, well, I don't want to say the Ancobia, but let's say the Ancobia spend their entire lives in fear of the Ascari, only to be eaten by the Eurasian. You understand? Or only to be conquered by the Eurasian. Or you can even put it the other way. You might say, hey, we spend the entire time fearing the Eurasian, only to be conquered by the Ascari. The point being, though, is that you want to focus. Now, of course, the Eurasian has more power than the Ascari, obviously. But you want to focus on the real enemy, the real system at hand, right? And that's another thing too. Like I was pointing out on the Discord as well as on Twitter. I was saying, look, realistically speaking, this Black Lives Matters lady, she's not in my organization. She's not really supposed to be accountable to me. She's not really responsible to me. Marcus Garvey said, if you do not teach somebody, then you can't hold them accountable to something you didn't teach them. If you didn't teach them how to do X, Y, Z, you can't really hold them accountable. If she's not in my organization, I can't really say, oh, well, she betrayed me, in a sense. She's not really coming after my resources, so on and so forth. I don't even plan on operating in the same country as her. You know what I mean? So it'd be the same as if a Danish man was grifting some Polish people. That really has nothing to do with me. It really has nothing to do with me in the sense that I'm not even in Poland. I don't plan on working in Poland. I don't really, it doesn't really mean anything to me. Doesn't take from me, doesn't give to me, doesn't do anything for me. So it was really like I shouldn't even focus on that. I shouldn't even bother with that. What I should focus on is where I want to work. That's what I was telling people. You have to focus on 4 questions in your life. I know I'm kind of just going a little longer than I should, but you want to focus on 4 different questions in your life. That is, what country are you in? What country do you want to work in? How much land do you have there? And how much land and resources do you need to do your best work? And so for me, it's like if I'm in America, sure. But if I want to work in an African country, right, then that's my first move, right? Then I have to ask myself, if I don't have any land in that African country, that's my second move. And then it's like, if I don't have any land, if I don't have the land or resources to do my best work, that's my third move. You know, and obviously my fourth move is to do my best work. This woman grifting, taking $90 million in America. But anyway, yeah. So what I said was this woman, spending $3 million of property. That's nothing to do with me. She's getting her land. You understand? She found a way to get her land to do her best work. To provide for her family. Got nothing to do with me. It don't take from me at all, cause I ain't giving nothing. You understand? At best, I could probably use her name, just be like, you know what, don't give it to these people. But that's about it. But anyway, so it's like I don't have to concentrate on fighting her, even though she's in Scary. I don't have to try to convert her, because she's doing good for herself, as far as she's concerned, right? But I have to focus on Wazungu, where I intend to work, or I have to focus on the Ascari, where I intend to work. But if I don't intend to do anything inside of America or whatever city or country or whatever state she's in, it got nothing to do with me. Like Poland got nothing to do with me. This is just another white country, as far as I'm concerned. But all right, let's keep going. And we really want to get to Coles and Cook, so we're gonna just keep jumping into it. As protracted struggle, blah blah, least gullible. Uncobia numbers increase. Uncobia focus heightens. In other words, who will fight the war against whites if blacks destroy themselves in internal warfare? That's the question. Of course, there's a balance. But recall that whites spend millions of their currency in war every day and have millions of soldiers on the ready. If we look at our millions as our enemies to wipe out, we'll be wiped out. You see? It's not an either or. It needs to be strategic and scientific, and Boko Wasetna Keru is the key to that strategy. Still, pay attention to Baba's speech here. Europeans really don't share Europe. He also gives a survey of Africa, but at a distance. You need to get close and survey for our nation with the analysis you learned from this book. You don't want to be at a distance in analysis. By distance, I'm talking about he's in America, talking about different African countries. It's pointless. That's actually, I was engaged in a conversation earlier, and it was like, Nigeria has blah blah blah. What do you think of this Nigerian policy, blah blah? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not in Nigeria. If I were in Nigeria, I probably could form some informed position, but I don't intend to be in Nigeria. If I do end up in Nigeria, I will then, do my due diligence and do my research. But if I'm not in Nigeria and I have no plans of being in Nigeria, then Nigerian politics don't mean anything to me. Unless I plan on engaging Nigeria in a political level, from whatever country I may be in. But that's for me to do on the ground. I will do my survey when it comes to that. But it might be that I engage with Niger. It might be that I engage with Togo. It might be that I engage with the Gambia, right? In which case, that's where I would do. I would do my due diligence for Gambia. Me investigating, Nigeria or wherever, just for the, for the entertainment is all well and good, but it's but it's just entertainment. I mean, I started watching some sci-fi, science fiction for entertainment. You know what I mean? And I'm just just joking. All right, let's go. But at a distance, you don't get very close to survey, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to be at a distance in analysis. Compare Baba's words on Liberia with what we know of Liberia from Garvey's time. The white world understood that a few well-placed migrants could have overtaken Liberia politically. This is why you want to see the preface to L.E. Garcia's letter. That's later in the book. That's one of the most... if you want to know about Garvey, because somebody asked me recently if, about Garvey. If you want to know about Garvey, read that, finish this book, okay? When you read this letter, the preface to that letter, you're going to get a pretty well-versed impression of Garvey. A pretty well-versed impression of Garvey. Of course, obviously, read Race First by Tony Martin, as well as, Message to the People, and of course, the other, required reading which is Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. But if nothing else, make sure you read this preface as well. So now, migration isn't the best solution either, as migrants have limitations of rights. But if given a few freedoms as a migrant, you can turn a black nation around, and our enemies understand this. This is why they limited Garvey and the UNIA. So this is important right here. So, you know, one of the things that's unfortunate is that, like I just said, I want to go to Africa, right? I'm gonna go as a migrant. Migrants have a limitation; they're limited by rights. You know, it might be that I can't run for a political office. I'd have to do my research on what country to go to, blah blah blah. But it might be I can't run for a political office. I could be very effective as a politician. I could be very effective as a Secretary of Education or a Secretary of State even. You know, then I would probably research Nigeria, but or research how to engage Nigeria. But I may not have that opportunity as a migrant. You know, but you can. But even so, this is what Garvey understood. This is what Garvey knew, that if I'm on the ground and I could form a political party, which might not be something I'm limited by, or I could engage in a political party. You know, I could stand outside and petition for a political party even if I can't run myself, right? That can still have a political impact. So of course, you know, you might want to go to countries that have free political parties, you know, free political rights. But this is, or even not even that. You could even say, hey, look, I could go for somewhere with economic rights, or I could start up a business in this place and keep, you know, and have low taxation. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. You could build a library. You can build it. There's politics, culture, and economics. Those three. You can do one of those three anywhere, right? Or if you could, then that could have a significant impact on the city you're in, the state you're in, the country you're in. And you know, I'm just using American lingo, but you understand what I'm saying. It's that you can have a significant impact even as a migrant. Even without rights, even without citizenship, if you just keep active and do what, like I said, do your best work. Now, of course, if you can get land, then you know, shoot, you're in no trouble, because land, as a human being, land is one of the things that you should desire. All right, so let's go. You can analyze from a distance, but it's best to analyze close up and from the ground. If Africa's elites become Ancobia, whether by conversion, magnates, or newcomers, the die is cast for African power. This is as simple as it is. You want Africa's elites to become Ancobia, and that could be by conversion, by magnates, or newcomers, right? Magnates are, you know, well, you should look it up, okay? So organizing in Africa is therefore fundamental. That's what it is. Thank Aman that Baba has shown us what organizing the Western world to be on the ready for Africa amounts to. It was excellent, especially for Ethiopia, which can claim African Western assistance. But it won't make that superpower in Africa. Baba was incomparably poignant. His main lesson is go home. Now's the time to build Africa. So one of the critiques I would say, or one of the criticisms for Carlos A. Cooks, is that he was in America. And the reality is that, you know, like, he's here in America, you don't know of him. A lot of people don't know of him. And a lot of people, and he really didn't have that big an impact on Africa, with the exception of maybe assisting in the Ethiopian war against Italy, right? You know, by getting black people to sign up. But that's the whole point. They went to Africa. Outside of that, you know, you could do everything you want in America. It's not going to have the impact that you want. Like right now, if I wanted to, like the impact I want in, like, let's say if I was interested in Nigeria, because I brought up to Nigeria, and I told you I'm not interested in Nigeria. And part of the reason why I'm not telling you the country is because you don't necessarily announce your moves before you make them. You know, that was also in the rules of warfare. If for those of you who may not know, actually, I'm gonna, you know, nobody's listening, so well, one person's listening, so shout out to that one person. But I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So this is the rules of warfare. Again, you want to review these, and here's what it says. Let's see. No proceeding is better than that which you have concealed from the enemy until the time you have executed it. So that's part of the reason why I don't really tell people where I'm going, what I'm doing beforehand. Obviously, sometimes when you do tell people, you know, loose lips sink ships. They start talking about it like, you know, like they're like, oh, are you going there? And you're like, oh my gosh, this is why I don't tell you people stuff, you know. They're like, oh yeah, we just blah blah. So that's another thing. The other one that and this is said multiple. This is said more than once. So I'm gonna show you the other one as well. Well, actually, this is two. Right here, there's two. Change your proceeding when you become aware that the enemy has foreseen it. So that's why I say Nigeria, knowing that I'm not going. You know, because if I tell you where, the enemy is going to just set up shop where I'm going. If I say, oh, I'm going to go to Lagos, like they're going to be waiting for me at Lagos. Or this is the other one: counsel with many on the things you ought to do, and confer with few on what you do afterwards. So it's like, yeah, you can get advice from many people. I could go around asking people that were like, oh yeah, this country's nice, that country's nice, this part of Nigeria is nice, that part of Nigeria is nice, whatever. And notice how I keep saying Nigeria, right? But if you really plan on doing something, you just confer with a few people. Now, obviously, you also want to confer with a few people who do not say anything, but that's not the case. They will say something regardless because, yada yada. And plus, you're dry snitching on yourself anyway. Because let's say you go through and you use your main account for YouTube to search, or your Google to search information on these places, then that's all tied back to whomever. So it's not like it's really like you could have another account, but even that probably like you're screwing up, or you could that's tied to your IP address and all that kind of stuff. It's not, and then of course you're gonna want your mail there. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So don't like take it too seriously, obviously, but also you don't want to make it too easy for your enemies regardless. It's probably not going to be difficult for them. You don't want to make it too easy, and you don't want to be careless, because one of the things that we tend to do is be careless. Now obviously you could go for an encrypted, you could go for a VPN, you could go for an encrypted web search, you could go for this and so forth if you're really serious. A lot of people aren't serious though, so I wouldn't sweat it. Alright, so let's go. Finally, Carlos Cooks after 30 minutes, right? But I mean, that was a good talk. Come on. All right. The time is at hand when the black man must pause and take serious note of the rapid current of world events. Life for the people of African stock has been for the past 3 centuries a relentless struggle for survival, but not so much against the forces of nature. Nay, nature blessed the African race with the richest of all continents and the finest of all climates. It has equipped the black man with the greatest and most rugged physique among men, and black women whose wholesome beauty, sparkling eye, rhythmic gait, warm, tender smile, cheerful, and affectionate disposition cannot be excelled or rivaled by any other female. The greatest menace to the black man has been and still is the white man's diabolical and determined plan to commit genocide. Their exterminating the Amerindians and the Australian Aborigines points to their murderous intent to liquidate the African people. A great Bamangwato chief asked in the late 19th century, when the British were barbarously exterminating the Bamangwatos, "Why do you kill my people?" Right? Now, I want you to figure this out. I want you to understand this. Now, here's one of the issues. Here's one of the things that it's really kind of disappointing. All right? There's actually this movie. I mean, there's two things to it, to be honest. But there's this movie called, I don't remember the name of the movie actually, but it's one of those slave movies, right? Oh yeah. Remembering Uncle Tom, I think. All right. On one scene of this movie, now this is like a movie that you would want to watch, but not if you have a weak stomach, right? Because it depicts slavery in a rather brutish way, from the rapes and the murders and the killings and the, yada yada. It's made by some Europeans who kind of make it into a mockumentary. Not so much to mock the enslaved Africans as much to mock the enslavers, but at the same time, it's still, disappointing to look at, because they kind of show you, yeah, it's just disappointing. Anyway, but one of the scenes in that movie, though, has this prison cell where you have Native Americans who, or sorry, Amerindians, right? I use Amerindians, right? They're waiting to die, and the thing is, the white people are going to kill them off, right? Because they will not work. They would rather fight white people to the death than work. And you might say, well, why don't Africans want to fight people to the death? And part of it, I want to admit, part of it may be because, uh, like, black people are just not in this land. Like this land is just not native to us. When the Amerindian is fighting to the death, they're fighting on their land with the hope of keeping their land. When you are kidnapped and taken from another place to another part of the world, your hope of land isn't there. Because I mean, like you're not really fighting for your land. It's like nothing really to fight for. You've lost everything. Like that's why I said, find a country you want to go to and get land, because land is what like land is the basis of all warfare, as they say. Like fighting for no land is kind of like what is the big point for that? I mean, it reminds me of, there's this movie, or this book actually, called what is that movie called? Well, oh yeah, sorry, Spook Who Sat by the Door, right? So the Spook Who Sat by the Door, there's this like it ends abruptly, and the reason why, and I tell people, I say, look, the reason why it ends abruptly is because there was no real ending for it. It starts with this, he converts these gang members into this fighting force that's, able to go up against, the like America's like either police or their National Guard, right? But it's like, what happens after? After 12 years of fighting, you're in this little city. Do you now have land independence? Can you fight for 12 years against this American military on its own soil, and hope to win? Like what are you gonna win? When because you'll still be surrounded by 300 million white people, or 200 million white people. The example of the Seminoles is one example of a people who fought America on its soil and technically didn't lose, but they had to retreat to Mexico. They had to, there wasn't a way that they were going to have an independent black Florida or whatever. So it's like, you have to fight over land. And that's partly, I would say that's part of the reason why you don't really see that kind of fight in America as you would see where land is a possibility. In Haiti, land was a possibility. In Africa, land was, in Kenya, land was a possibility, right? In America, it really wasn't, only because you were so heavily outnumbered as compared to other areas where you weren't necessarily so heavily outnumbered, or where other areas where you were outnumbering your enemy. So, and on top of that, like the land possibility was also there. Like with the Native Americans, they might not have outnumbered white people at some point, but they still had the possibility of, they were fighting for their land. And that's another thing as well. So, and of course, I go back to this, because genocide is like a strong statement people might not agree with, and that's fine. Again, you go to the rules of warfare and you realize that you don't need to, because one of the things that you don't need to kill people, because the thing with black people is that they will work for you. They will work for you. You can, and instead of saying exploiting their labor, right, which is something that we tend to do, you could just say they will make it so that you don't have to work. You now, like for instance, if I go to Africa and I say, look, let me get 500 acres of land, right? 500 acres of land, and I want to make or even let's say 1,000 acres of land, right? I got a young son, right? Let's say, I mean, I don't usually like to say age, but can't really hide that, right? So let's say he's 5, right? 5-year-old son, right? Me and my 5-year-old son on 1,000 acres, and we want to produce corn or something, right? Corn to feed people over 1,000 acres, or more or less corn and other stuff. But the point is that we want to make money off this corn. It's 1,000 acres, right? I don't have any industrial, gear or whatever equipment, so I have to then go up, wake up every morning and go outside and check 1,000 acres of land. It's ridiculous, right? Now, if you tell me, hey, look, I can get people to work for free, so that I don't have to do any work at all. I don't actually have to go out. I don't have to work with them. They'll do all the work. for free, and I'll just get all the profit, right? Now, yeah, obviously you could call that exploitation, and so on and so forth. Yes, and obviously I wouldn't do that. No, like why? But the point being though is that living in a way such that you don't have to work, on top of the fact that you can also still get the goods and services that you would want available to you, that are available to you, then that's actually a reason why to keep somebody else alive, if they will do that for you. You know, obviously, slavery was a terrible system, and this was, like I said, watched Remembering Uncle Tom or whatever the name of the movie is, right? But something to do with Uncle Tom. But you know, my phone is blowing up. I don't know what that's about. Okay, but you obviously want to. Like that's another reason why you wouldn't kill off of people, because at the moment, for instance, when you go to work, you're working in the place of a white person, right? So that the white boss of yours doesn't have to do what you're doing. You understand? So if you're, I don't know what you do, right? But like let's say the typical thing that people say about black folk is, like let's say we do janitorial work, right? If you are not the janitor, right, then this white man either has to, like if the white man cannot find a janitor, he has to sweep and mop his own building, on top of doing whatever else it is he does. So instead of doing that, he gets somebody else to do it. And that's why he doesn't necessarily kill off this lower class or these other people, white people around him or the black people around him, because if he does do that, then he will have to do this work for himself. And that's something that, like don't underestimate, not just passive income, but don't underestimate, because again, they're humans, like we're all humans in a sense, obviously, they might have a different genealogical history, but we're all humans in a sense, and so if you can get away with doing less work, that's probably something that you would want to do. So that's partly why, because sometimes some people might be like, hey, it's not genocide, they're not trying to kill us, Well, yeah, they want to work you so that they don't have to work, which is something that's a little bit more innocent, obviously, but that's something that I would say, if I were to try to just simplify it for people, that's what it is, They don't want to push the broom. They don't want to mop the floor. They don't want to clean vomit in the school. They don't want to stay in the classroom and talk to the kids, and teach them stuff. They want to, run the school, they want to be able to divide labor and give the lowest labor to you and the highest labor to them, if labor at all, because like remember, the plantation owner is just sitting on his ass making sales. You know what I mean? Hey, you want some cotton? Okay, I got you. He's not. The plantation owner is not on the fields picking cotton or whatever. They don't like they wouldn't do that. And it's the same. If I had 1,000 acres, and I could get away with not picking corn at all, I might do that. I don't think I would pick corn if I had a choice. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I pick corn sometimes, obviously, for camaraderie, but like 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day? Nah, not even. If I had to, but if I don't have to, no, I would do it probably only, as because I hear some of you shaking your head, I hear some of you shaking your head, or one of you, one person listening. Actually, no, it jumped up 4 people, but I hear some of y'all shaking your head, but like, it's a tough thing, to be like, yeah, go pick up some corn. Especially when I get older, But there's people who do that. There's people who want to be farmers, or people who are farmers, and they're okay with picking corn. But the point is that there's a lot of people who are not okay with doing physical labor, because like, why? You know what I mean? Like, if I could just make the sales, you know what I mean? Because that's work in and of itself. You know what I mean? Making the sales is also work in a sense. It's not the same kind of work, but it could be work. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. So he's like, why do you kill my people? So today their method is more subtle, but just as effective. Hundreds of thousands died in Kenya, and more are quartered in compounds on a starvation ration. Death to them will come through the slow and painful agony of malnutrition. It is genocide. Now, he might be talking about the Mau Mau revolution at this point, right? In Cuba, under the pretense of vengeance against Batista's regime, Castro is wiping out the black population. The black man, if he has any desire to survive, will have to embrace black nationalism totally. So that's another thing that, a lot of people might not pick up on is the Cuba thing, right? But of course, that's something that I would want to research also. I don't really, like, again, I said I don't, like, it's like Poland. I don't research Poland because I got nothing to do. I'm not going to Poland. I'm not really going to Cuba. I know there's a lot of black people in Cuba, a lot of black people in America, a lot of black people in Michigan, or like, I don't care. I'm not, or even black people in Nigeria. Like, I don't research it because I don't, like, I go by what I can do in my life. I go by, can I start an organization there? That's the question you have to ask. Can I start an organization there? Can I organize people there? Can I organize to get 1,000 acres? And have a corn farm. Well, obviously corn is not indigenous Africa, so I shouldn't have said that. But maybe you could grow corn there. Who knows, right? If you can grow corn there, then maybe you're gonna tell me no. I don't really care. That's not the point. The point is, can I organize people to get a freaking corn thing? Because then you can do a lot of things with corn. You can make corn chips. You can make corn sauce or whatever. I don't know. You could make. I don't know. I mean, I guess. But there's probably a lot of things you can do with corn. Or you can make roads. You can make concrete. I don't know. The point is that. Can we, can you organize there? Because Cuba's not in my purview, Jamaica's not in my purview, Nigeria's not in my purview, I don't want to give out too much, but the point is that if I'm not planning on organizing there, it's not my business, it's none of my business, as the song goes, right? But anyway, let's go on. The greatest tool of white supremacists are the flunky vassals, the modern day Ascari. These lackeys fought the doctrine of Marcus Garvey. These stooges today advocate civil rights, social equality, and miscegenation in America. The gang of Britain-centered Ascari in the West Indies see themselves as part of the British Empire and encourage a black man to sell his land and seek his fortune in England, only to find upon arrival there is a hungry mob of murder-bent whites waiting to bury them. It is genocide. The African Nationalist Pioneer Movement, through its executive spokesman, Carlos A. Cooks, is calling on the world of black men to rally behind the doctrine of black nationalism. There is no permanent future for the black man here in America. The integrationist doctrine that has fostered so much strife is but a death trap for the blacks. It is deliberately agitated by people who do not belong to the race. They are using the black man as a distracting force to prevent what happened to them in Germany and other European countries from happening to them here. Now, of course, you already kind of see what he's talking about. He's talking about these Jews. I was actually talking about this yesterday. Now, this was a really important podcast yesterday. The one on Yurugu, chapter 2, is about religion. And I didn't know much about the Judaism, but it really, this was a good chapter to learn about it. But you could kind of see that he's saying, look, this integrationist doctrine is being fostered, is deliberately agitated by these Jews who are using the black man as a distracting force to prevent what happened to them in Germany from happening in other countries, from happening in America. You understand? So I was actually pointing that out yesterday that, a lot, because they have this supremacy model, right? Where they are they're the Jews and we're the Gentiles. We're less than, we're the inferiors. And so they kind of put us in the front of the quote unquote media in a sense, right? In order that they aren't. You know what I mean? Like one thing I noticed, for instance, when I watch, I don't really watch like American sitcoms that much anymore, but when I did watch American sitcoms, I'd always see jokes about Jews, as making them positive or whatever. But it's just why are they talking about so much if they're 1% of the population? Why are they talking about so much? And part of it, but of course I'm not trying to sound like, because a lot of us are programmed to be like, oh no, that's anti-Semitic, or instead of anti-Kemetic. But anyway, a lot of us are programmed to not want to hear that, so I'm not really interested. But I'm just explaining to you what this passage from 50 years ago was saying, and what it just seems to be a consistent reality among people. Because I would say too, I just want to point this out, that the socialist doctrine is the same thing. You know, you want to agitate against the like it's not that anybody cares. It's not that Marx cares for the proletariat. It's that he wants to agitate the proletariat against the bourgeoisie. You do that agitation against the bourgeoisie because now the bourgeoisie are the enemy, as opposed to any foreign group that may be pulling a fast one on them. And that's not to say that other whites are not guilty of anything, because they are. White, the main part of this essay is that whites are, committing genocide against black people. But it's just important to realize that, sometimes black people are being manipulated by, people with ulterior motives. And this is something that's common. If you remember, there's this old podcast I have on geopolitics where I think I read one of the manuals for geopolitics by the Russians. The Russians are trying to agitate racial division in America as well to make it politically less stable. They say this, they print it out. It's just something that foreign people do, like it's something that grown-ups do. It's like if I were seriously interested, like if I was Secretary of State of African nation and I really wanted to co-opt Nigeria, parts of Nigeria, let's say I was neighboring Nigeria, right? Then I would try to agitate for political instability in Nigeria, so to co-opt that the part of Nigeria I wanted. That's what foreign policy is. That's what geopolitics is. That's what grown-ups do. That's what humans, adults do. It's not just oh, everybody's innocent and we just everything is out in the open. That's not how we're supposed to operate. So yeah, if I were interested in like I know there's like a neighboring state that might have a majority ethnic group for Nigeria. If I was interested in expanding my state, I would do that agitation. Make that part of make that ethnic group in Nigeria want to detach from Nigeria and join my country, and then I have more resources, more so on and so forth. That's what you should expect. And of course there might be a fight over that, and then you have to win that fight. But that's what you would expect. You want, like, saying that people are agitating or deliberately manipulating black folk is just like, you should say, yeah, that's expectation. So anyway, the Sky Stooges that they are using to perpetuate their cruel joke would sell their own mother into bondage for the sake of being able to move around as circus clowns in the circle of white society. They may be black in color, but they are psychological bastards whose fate in the final hour of reckoning will be the common end of a traitor. Next to the white man, so you see, I said that you two, like some people I read wrote, obviously you don't want to focus too much on hurting your own people. So next to the white man, the greatest enemy of Africa and black opportunity are the integrationists, civil rightists, and misogynists. Close behind come the communists and those who would encourage the black man to take his problems to the Eurasian aspirate in prayer and leave it there. So he's talking about the Christians, right? There is the gang. I mean, it might have been in the original text. It said Christians, but I don't like to talk about. I don't like to advertise other people's religions, right? So there is a gang in Africa who cannot understand that they cannot and will not form any partnership between the African and the white man. It is not in the nature of the white man to share anything. Now, this is really important. I want you to pay attention to this. Did he share America with the Amerindian? No. Did he share Australia with the Australian Bushman? No. They are both dead. They are victims of their own charity and gullibility. They too believe that they could share the land with the white man. Isn't it strange that the African leaders cannot realize that the white man shares Europe with no one? Remember this, that even to this day, there might be some non-white people in Europe, but they're being agitated against. They're being called every other thing. Why? Because white people do not try to share with other people, and that's really something that you want to understand. So look, Mchaka's here. For what purpose do you agitate the proletariat with the bourgeoisie? That's been the case since Nigeria's inception. So Mchaka's here. That's pretty interesting. What purpose do you agitate? You agitate the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie in order that the proletariat are not agitated against you. You know what I mean? It's like it's just divide and conquer. If the proletariat and the bourgeoisie are on the same side, technically, right? Like they're in the same community, the same nation, so on and so forth. If you are on the outside trying to do some stuff, right, or if you're doing some crooked stuff on the outside, and the proletariat are looking at you and the bourgeoisie are looking at you, which is usually the case, you instead agitate the proletariat against the bourgeoisie so that neither of them are looking at you. You know, the bourgeoisie are now looking at the proletariat, and the proletariat are now looking at the bourgeoisie, and nobody's looking at you. You know, the same with this black-white conflict. If whites are looking at blacks and blacks are looking at whites, the whites are not looking at the Chinese, the blacks are not looking at the Chinese, or the blacks are not looking at the Jews, and the whites are not looking at the Jews. You know, it's really that simple. It's just, you know, you just get people to look at each other. The same with like if you were grifting, like for instance Umar Johnson. Umar Johnson says, hey, you know, what's nationalists? Let's look at these feminists. You know, and the feminists are like, let's look at the nationalists, whatever, right? Or the feminists might be like, hey, let's look at Umar Johnson, and we're like, no, you know, Umar Johnson said look at the feminists, and so Umar Johnson could do whatever he wants, you know, or Tariq Nasheed could do whatever he wants because we're looking at the feminists. It's always, you know, it's always about changing the people's attention, you know. Marx had ulterior motives. Now, Marx is really interesting. Marx had, so Menchaca wrote, so you're insinuating Marx had ulterior motives, and thanks, Menchaca, for writing. Marx has an article against these Jews for some reason, right? He says the Jews are like a crooked, thieving people for some reason, and he's a Jew. But does he have ulterior motives? He comes from a intellectual tradition. If you check out the podcast from yesterday about a religion, he comes from this same Judaism tradition that kind of uplifts, or the same European tradition that uplifts science above religion in a sense, as well as makes a supremacy model, or to say that we're going to, like the Jews. If you look at how the Jews portray themselves, they are this one system that's going to be the best in the world, and things that's going to be a symbol for the world, and it's given to this one Messiah, so on and so forth. And then Marx has like the same ideology in a sense, but it just modernized, and it's called scientific socialism as opposed to socialism. It's really the same thing. The ulterior motive, I couldn't say, I mean, it's self-evident when you look at Hitler. Like what Hitler was saying about the Jews was that they were manipulating, they were pushing on this socialism to manipulate Germany into like its own internal divisions, you know. So that's what Hitler was saying, and that's what this rabbi was saying about Hitler. I mean, what about Hitler was that when he reads Mein Kampf, he's like, oh, Hitler was like anti-socialist. He was against the socialists, and he realized that a lot of Jews were pushing socialism, and socialism was that agitation between the proletariat and bourgeoisie, and partly this is while they're doing these, you know, crooked financial things that, you know, one of the crooked things that they do, and I guess Karl Marx even pointed this out, is that they do this usury. So usury is like something that Christians say that's like was supposed to be something that you shouldn't be able to do, which is I think it's akin to charging interest. I don't know, but it is that if you're gonna lend somebody money, you don't charge them interest, you just lend the money. But the way how the Jews have it is that you could do usury to Gentiles, but you can't do it to you know, to other Jews, right? Because it's just immoral apparently. But you could do it to inferior people, and so this was like, you know, this is obviously it's a good practice. Usually, it's a good practice in order to create wealth off of wealth, but there's like a lot going on. It was like a legit. I mean, I guess even Karl Marx was saying there's a legit reason to be antithetical to this particular faith. And so, but of course, you know, if you're pushing this proletariat versus bourgeoisie thing, and you know, workers of the world unite, and you know, the real enemy is the bourgeoisie, then no, not tax collectors. I think usury. Let me look up usury. Mchaka says tax collectors have been hated. I mean, tax collection is not. Usury is the illegal practice or practice of lending money at unreasonable high rates of interest. So that's the noun, or interest at unreasonably high rates. That's the archaic way. Okay, so it's just, so yeah, okay, so like pretty much, even if you open the Wikipedia, it's like the first page of Wikipedia is usury is the practice of making. Let me just share the screen actually. Let me just share it. There you guys see it. So I just searched, quickly Google, support Google, right? No, I'm joking. The illegal of action or practice of lending money at unreasonable high rates, blah blah. Interest at unreasonable blah. Is usury a sin in the Bible? You know what I mean? Is usury allowed in Christianity? Usury is the practice of making unethical or immoral monetary loans that unfairly enrich the lender. The term may be used in a moral sense, condemning blah blah. Basically, it's a really bad thing, but Jews explicitly say they can do it to Gentiles. But meanwhile, you see, it's like even just searching, it's like so many moral judgments on it. It's a pretty interesting topic, but yeah, it's there. Like there was a legit, concern, a legit. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So Jaka says so. Banks, if you are if you have political ambition, or if you are trying to uplift your nation from debt or from poverty, and there are these kind of banks that are doing this, and they're run by certain families, you may in fact have like it might not be unreasonable to have the view of 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 overtaking those families or those groups. So it's not really like out. It's not really awkward or absurd. So like while we make joke, we'd be like, so banks, yeah, but but we're saying that from the standpoint of being well to do. It's kind of like today you might be like the IMF. You don't really like if you were a leader in Africa, you could turn your attention against the IMF, and nobody's really gonna bat an eye and be like, why are you talking about the IMF? It's just banking. It's not just banking. People are really suffering, and people are really hungry. And this would be the case in Germany post World War One. Like people were really starving, people were really hungry, and then some people were living it up, notwithstanding, and not having fought, or according to them, not having fought that much in the war. On top of that, so it's just it's a really interesting. Like I said, you look at it from a human perspective in a sense, and it makes a little more sense. Let's see. We're going to continue. The picture in the eighth one of the world is compound interest. Okay, that's interesting. What? All right. The picture in Africa from the standpoint of leadership narrows down to two states that are potentially capable of spearheading the drive for total reclamation of continental Africa. They are Egypt, which is based in the dynamic drive of that great organizer, Abdel Gamal Nasser, and the Sudan, which is based in its vast land area and a strategic location. So this is pretty interesting that people, because one of the things that was really interesting is that a lot of people will say, "Hey, we're West African, West African." Like I was in trouble for talking about Egypt, matter of fact, on Twitter, and they were just like, "Yeah, you gotta focus on West Africa. You gotta focus on West Africa, right?" And the thing is that here you have two Northeast African states, both of them considered Muslim today or Arab today. Well, Sudan broke apart and became now South Sudan is the youngest nation on the planet. But before that, it was ruled by it was partly ruled by these Arabs, and the same with Egypt. It's like the Arab Republic or something like that. But the point being that you have to look at Africa, and again, that's why this goes back to what I said earlier about not looking at Africa from a distance. You want to go where you can organize, but as you can see, from a distance, Egypt with Abdel Gamal Nasser and Sudan, which is vast and strategic, were good areas for the reclaiming the continental Africa. So that's something that you want to consider as well. And of course, that's a hugely political effort that, realistically speaking, the only person who really made a serious headway in that would be Nyerere, in terms of him actually combining various African nations. But yeah, that's something right there. Let's see. So let's go to the next one. Ethiopia, under the present leadership, must be written off as a futile encumbrance to the designs of a modern free Africa. Under the Ethiopia, oh yeah, so you're saying Ethiopia, no, because there's present leadership, written off as a futile encumbrance to the designs of modern free Africa. So, but of course, this was like 60 years ago, so it's not really that important. But it's important also to look at nations, to do your analysis and say, you know what, under the present leadership, can I get something done? No. Then just scratch it off your list. You know, Liberia is but an extension of white imperialism. Scratch it off your list. And Ghana is a model for the new type of British colonialism. You know, ironically, Ghana is like a really good nation today. But back then, he's like, this was just British colonialism. And this might have been, and the funny thing too is that this is during Nkrumah's lifetime, you know, which is weird because Nkrumah was considered, Nkrumah is really considered, well, I mean, I don't really, alright, I was gonna say something nice about Nkrumah, but you know what? Never mind. Right? Not today, right? All right. So Guinea is much too involved in the battle for survival at the time to make its power felt. Right. So the position of blacks in the Western world should and must be one of militant nationalism, the marshalling and organizing of all black people, and a linking up of their power with the patriots of Africa are imperative. So this is what it is. And the thing is, like I said, you can't write this in America. You have to go in Africa and do your linking up, right? Organizing combat brigades, medical units, and pioneer corps is necessary. These should be organized and held in readiness so that when the hour of decision tolls, black men everywhere would not only be willing, but they shall be able to answer the call. So he's saying, look, if you're in America, organize your combat brigades, organize your medical units, and organize your pioneer corps, you know? And I guess, again, like I said, to his credit, when Ethiopia and Italy were fighting the African Nationalist people, the African Nationalist Pioneers movement did in fact send combat brigades over, you know, or did in fact, you know, get a bunch of African people to enlist, you know, African people here in America to enlist. So it's not like you can't necessarily do anything, but the genius that this man had could have been felt so much stronger on the continent. So last is this poem, and it says, the conflict thickens on ye braves, let's charge for Africa or the grave. Wave Africa, let all your banners wave. Few shall part where many meet. The sacred soil of Africa shall be their winding sheet, and every turf of ground beneath the invader's sacrilegious feet shall be a white man's sepulture. And that's Carlos A. Cooks. So that was that book. Most nations must be off the list then. Mchaka says most nations. Yeah, you gotta make your own list. You know, realistically speaking, you know, as I was talking about the general rules of warfare, you want to make your own list. You know, and that list is gonna be particular to you because realistically speaking, you're not really going to go to a nation and immediately be impactful to that nation. You probably want to pick a city. You probably want to pick a city, a town, and so on and so forth, and probably be local to the resources that you would need to do what you need to do. You know, those resources could be anything in the way of even proximity to like good transportation. For instance, I'll give you an example. There's some people who wanted to buy my book, and they're in Africa, and they can't even order it off of. They can't even order like it's on Amazon, so they can't even order for Amazon because Amazon doesn't deliver where they are, or in another way. So like that's something to consider. If you want to keep using Amazon, for instance, or Amazon's necessary for your business, which would probably be a weird thing to be necessary, but you know, you either have to find an alternative that's there or something along those lines. Another person, I was asking somebody about where their address was. Now this is like a whole grown ass adult who hasn't moved in like who's like probably lived there for a long time. I asked them their address. They didn't know where their address was. You know what I mean? Like they didn't know what would be what would be the official name for their address. And the same with I'll actually be honest. The same with when I was going to Jamaica, I had to put down the address of my grandmother, and like it wasn't a real address. There was no number. It was like a long street, and she was one of the addresses on that street. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to get like serious mailing done, you want to do your investigation to see, you know, can I even have a freaking address? You know, because a lot of places don't have addresses like that. Like you know, like how it might have in America. Like the postal service isn't that developed, we could say, right? There's other things that you might want. You might want to be off the grid. You might want to be deeply on the grid. You might want high-speed internet. You know what I mean? You might want to have no power. You know, and other people might want to have a lot of power. You know, You might want to start a clothing, like a laundromat or whatever, right? Double quarters left junction type address. I don't know what that means, man. But you know, I should have had you on Discord, but but you want to like another thing, you want to have a laundromat, which might want to have access to a large output of water. You know, other things that you might have to have. You want to do printing. You might want to do like I say, you do like an after school program. You might want to have places that have students, that have a large population of students, or whatever. You might want to do programming. If you want to do programming, you want to have access to high computing and all that kind of stuff. The point being that, it really has to do with you, So your list is not going to be somebody, like the list of the person who wants to do a programming thing is not going to be the same list as the person who wants to do a laundromat thing, unless they want to live together, which, it's possible, but it's just, instead of us trying to do like a generic big, consistency is the struggle at times. Yeah, exactly. So instead of us trying to do like a big list, we have to figure out what it is that we can do. Because you might even, like with consistent electricity, you might want to be doing some phone stuff, in which case you don't need that kind of same electricity as somebody who's doing some computing, So that's really what it comes to. But anyway, I hope people enjoyed that. This was a really good article, a really good essay. Obviously, if you want to read more, I don't have all of Carlos A. Cook's. If you want to read Carlos A. Cook's book, you can just pick it up in the Discord. But if you want to read the introduction and go through it or whatever, obviously check out the Book of Power, and it's available on Amazon and all that jazz. And like I said, if you some people in Africa can't get books, but they have to. They can't order from Amazon, but they can order from other people who so on and so forth. That's already a business idea. You can deliver things to places that are not really getting deliveries. You could pull a UPS or a FedEx in areas that don't have good postal service, and that's a good service. And again, like I said, you don't have to do it yourself. You could just hire people to deliver things. You know what I mean? So there's a whole or if you want to do a computer lab, you can open up a computer lab, but you have to figure out where computers are not really that available. Like you can't just open up a computer lab in the middle of a really highly technical place. So you have to, part of surveying is looking at what's there and what you can do to make it better. And so that's going to be up to you as an individual, because what your skill set is not going to be what another person's skill sets are. And obviously, if everybody wants to just go to the same nation, that's fine. But again, I wouldn't announce it, because that's not something that that should be announced. You should just keep that to yourself until the time that nobody can stop you, or nobody can do anything against you. Because that's what happened with Garvey. He said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Liberia and I'm going to change the world. I'm going to get rid of France. I'm going to get rid of England, and blah blah." And they were like, "No, you ain't." You know what I mean? So don't do that. That was one of Garvey's flaws, or one of Garvey's mistakes, was to just tell everybody his business before actually doing it. And I mean, there's good to it, there's bad to it. Then obviously the bad to it is that he never got to make it to Africa. Sure. I mean, I'm trying to say don't call chicks. I mean, shit, I might as well. I mean, shit. I don't know if I could. But anyway, everybody, look, I got 1 like and 5 concurrent viewers. Of course, I'm one of them, so it's 4 concurrent viewers. So let me see some more likes, all right? But anyway, other than that, thank you so much, family. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did. If not, I mean, that's how it is. But all right then. Shemi Hotep, Al Kuja Seneb Neb, Amen Ma'at Dua Necher.